Hello everybody, this is part 6 of 2D platformer series, and in this part we're gonna build a magical UI for this game. So let's get started. First, what we want is whenever our player dies, there is a panel should appear on the screen that shows a complete game over details. So let's get started. Let's go into the graphics folder, 2D UI. I am using these graphics. You can use whatever you want. Let's create a image, 2D image. What is this? Now let's call this image game over panel, game over panel, and I'm going to assign this frame A to this panel. Let's stretch this panel to the border across the screen, so I'm going to hold Alt and Shift by clicking this anchor button and selecting this most top bottom anchor. Now you can see that the over panel is stretched across the screen. Let's go into the scene view, focus on this game panel. Let's adjust the size of the canvas. Let's set it to scale with screen size and set it to 1920 by 1080 and set this value to 0.5. Now whenever our game is over, there should be a title appeared on this panel that shows the game over. So I'm going to click game over panel, create and UI text. Let's set this text to game over, so game over, and I'm going to set its fonts to BD solid font, and I'm going to increase its size by 200. Now focus on this text. Now you can see that our text is not appearing because the text is too much large and its container is too much small. So let's increase its size by dragging it from the corners. Yes, and set and align it to the center of the screen horizontally and vertically. Now we want to set it to the top of the screen like here. So what I'm gonna do, let's rename it first. Title, text, and I'm going to select this game over panel. Click on I'm going to select this title text and select this anchor button and select this top middle anchor. Now you can see that our game over is written on the top middle of the screen. Let's design it a bit. Let's let's change its color and add an outline so that it's look bit good in appearance. So add outline. I'm going to set it to white and increase its thickness by setting it to 5 into 5. Now add some buttons to it that shows the functionality. Now whenever the game over, we need 3 buttons. Let's say restart, main and exit. So what I'm gonna do is, let's create a UI image. Let's drag this button here. Set native, set it to the original size of the image. Let's call this restart button and increase its scale. Let's create a text, or I'm going to duplicate this text. So I'm going to duplicate this text and make it children of this restart button and setting its X and Y position zeros, and I'm going to set its game over by retry or restart, whatever I want, and I'm going to decrease its scale and set it at the center of the image, and I'm going to set its color to white and outline to black, and let's add a button component to it. So now our button is ready. Let's duplicate it and drag it to the right side of the screen, and let's call this main button, and let's duplicate it again and drag it a bit and change it to quit button. So let's call this quit and quit button, and let's say this to main. And now we need to add the functionalities for these buttons. So let's create a script called UI manager. So let's go to assets, scripts, and managers, and let's create a C# script and called it UI manager. Now we have 3 buttons, so we need 3 functions for those buttons. So let's start with public void on click retry, and let's copy this, let's copy this thrice, paste and paste, replace it by retry main and quit. So what we're gonna do is, now we want to reload our scene. So if we are manipulating anything related to scene, we need to library called scene management. So using unity engine dot scene management, and what I'm gonna say here is scene manager dot load scene manager dot load scene. Now we need to get the active scene name. So what I'm gonna do is scene manager dot get active scene dot build index. Let's save it, and for the main, that is pretty simple. Let's say scene manager dot load scene, and let's say main menu. We haven't created this scene, but it will load the scene when we, and for the quit, it has a universal code application dot quit. Let's save it, and now we're gonna assign these functions to those buttons. Let's click on the canvas, and let's attach this code to a manager. So let's create a game object, let's call it managers, and let's duplicate it, and let's call this manager called UI manager, and let's drag this inside here and coin manager inside this manager. Now let's drag these coin manager and UI manager inside managers. Now I'm going to add UI manager to it, and in the canvas I'm going to select these 3 buttons and dragging UI manager here, and for the restart button or retry button I'm going to select no function and going to retry, and for the main I'm going to select UI manager and on click main, and for the quit I'm going to say UI manager and quit. Now we have made our game over panel. Let's disable it. Now what we want is whenever our game is over or when player gets killed, we want to show this panel on the screen. So what we want is I'll go into the player controller, and here in the player controller when we are colliding with spike our game gets over. So I am going to remove this print statement and this time scale statement from here, and I'm going to call a function from the UI manager here. So let's go into the UI manager. Let's create a static instance of public static instance, public static UI manager instance, and in the start function we are going to assign this instance to this class, and let's create a function. I'm going to say events, so void public void on game over, and what we're gonna do is we need a reference to our game over panel, so I'm going to say public game object game over panel, and in the start I am going to deactivate this game over panel, so game over panel dot set active false, and duplicate this line, and I'm going to copy it here, and let's set our time dot time scale is equals to 0, so everything gets stopped when the game gets over. So now I'm going to call this game over function when the player collide with spike, so I'm going to say UI manager dot instance dot on game over. Let's save it and test this now. It should work, but we need to assign the public reference of game over panel. What error is this? UI manager does not exist. Why is that? Let's copy this class name and paste it here. Now if I click on the UI manager, and it requires a game over panel, and if I enable game over panel by default it will be disabled by UI manager. Now let's save it and test it now. Now I can move around, and whenever I collide with spike over character is not. Why is that? Now we can move around and we can jump, and whenever I jump on the spike our game gets over, and if I retry, and you can see our player cannot move. This is because our time scale is 0. So let's add time scale is equals to 1 in every function. Let's copy this and paste it above the code and set it to 1. Copy, paste and paste. Let's save it. Now you can see that we can move around, and whenever I jumped our game gets over, and when I retry it you can see that we can play it again. I cannot go to the main scene because I haven't created yet. We will create it in the next lecture, and quit functionality will work in any exe file or apk or IPA file we will create it for this game. So that's it for this tutorial. See you guys next time. Please subscribe my channel. Thank you.